Hey, it's Jinnie Cristerna, the High Achievers Therapist, and it's the day after the election, so we have crossed that bridge. I was actually planning on doing this Facebook Live post, regardless of whoever won, just to get some clarity around what the dynamics are that led up to the selection of our next president. And so this has less to do with whether or not I agree or disagree with whoever's the new president, and just has, of course, more to do with how we can get a better sense of who we are, understand why we do what we do, and if we would like to make a different decision about how we make choices moving forward, we can do that from a more conscious place with a lot more clarity. I had written a few things down. I jotted down some notes so I can stay focused. But of course, there's so many more dynamics to why Trump won instead of Hillary, and it would have been a whole different set of dynamics if Hillary won instead of Trump. So I'm just going to talk about a few things that are a lot more prominent for the Trump victory, and will give you an opportunity to start looking at the way you thought about choosing someone, the way that that would impact you, and how you might do it differently if you were to do it differently again. So people were, have been asking me. I was on TV this morning and yesterday, what do we do when if Trump wins, or what do we do if Hillary wins? I have Trump friends and I have Hillary friends, and I'm a Bernie gal, so. At this point, it's just like, it's an election. It is a meaningful election, as every election is. But it's important for us to remember that the sky doesn't fall, at least not yet. If it does, we all have a bigger problem. So as some of my friends would say, you better get right with God. With that said, the sky is still up there. Hillary, I just saw Patrick. Yes, she got the popular vote, as did a couple of candidates before, having the popular vote but losing the electoral college. So at the end of the day, there's a lot of anger, hurt, confusion, resentment. So to start off with the question of, how did he win? How did he win? And it's very easy. And one of the things that came up by Nate Silver, 538. Now, we gave him an award at the University of Chicago, but one of the things he said very early on, he said, Trump's going to win. He said that. And people were like, oh, you're crazy. You're Rule number one, never underestimate your opponent, because when you are starting to be dismissive of someone, you've just set them up to kind of break, the mold and to surpass expectations because the bar is so low. Okay, so that's one thing. The other thing is, Trump and Bill Clinton and Barack Obama and Ronald Reagan and JFK, one of the things that we know that great leaders and people who move people to do things are really good at doing is speaking to the emotions, or what we call the emotional body, or what we call in Yandi and Rohan the inner child. Oftentimes our feelings are dismissed. Oftentimes we don't listen to that part of us that knows better. We'll poo-poo it, and we'll send it off into timeout, and that child within us will come up and make decisions impulsively. It'll have a tantrum, it'll come out, and it'll make a decision that you then have to live with while it goes back to timeout. So we have to be aware of our emotions. We have to have respect for our emotions and respect for our mind. One of the things I love about Trump is that he can speak to that inner child and say, I see you, I know you're hurting, come here. And how many of us melt whenever somebody understands what we feel? Okay, so just know that that is a human condition, that the greater part of who we are needs to be acknowledged. And so when we talk about the JFKs and the Reagans and the Bill Clintons and the Obamas, they did that extremely well. So herein lies the first setup for Hillary Clinton. Because she's very much a policy wonk, she's very mental, that part was missing. So in Yandi or Rohan, we talk about the emotional body and then we talk about the mental body. Now, the emotional body is the child. That's the part of us that feels. That's the gas that gets us to do what we need to do. That's the passion. Our mental body, that is our mind that thinks. Now, here's the rub that I've been trying to just hammer home to as many people who would listen. The mind cannot feel. I don't care how you appeal to its logic. I don't care how you try to convince it of whatever you're trying to convince it of. The mind can't feel. Only the emotional body can feel. So this is why we say the mind and the body need to work together. The left and the right brain need to learn how to work together, because if you have just the mental body going, all you'll do is just continue to think and think and think. Nothing will happen. The child, the emotions, that's what actually gives you the gas. That is the fuel that will take whatever you think and turn it into something real. This is why charismatic leaders do so well, even if they're not very smart, even if they're not very savvy, even if they're not well informed. They do well because it's the child, it's our emotions that says, hey, get up, go to the gym. You want that great beach body in the summer. You want to reduce that, blood pressure. You want to do that. Yeah, let's do it. So our minds may know I should do this, but unless that child signs on, we are not doing anything. It remains a thought. So this is leading me to my second point. A lot of people who would have benefited from Hillary Clinton didn't turn out, because they weren't motivated. That kid didn't have a reason to get out of bed. It's like, oh, that's not fun. I'm not interested in that. Right? So be very, very aware that you matter, and all of you matter. Your mind, your body, your soul, it matters. It's not like, Trump is able to go in tomorrow and do anything, right? He could, but technically he can't because he's president-elect. So this is an opportunity for us to start thinking about, well, what can we ask of our representatives in Congress and in Senate to do for us? Well, that only comes to the forefront of our minds when we start to go, well, what is it that I really want? Do I really want to be saved? A lot of people are saying that, people who support Trump are stupid, uneducated, and victims, and they're powerless, and they just want somebody to come and save them. Well, hell, who doesn't? Who doesn't want somebody to come in and save them? That's why we have the lottery. Everyone's playing the lottery. I play it too. I might win. So it's not so much that people are stupid or bad or anything like that. This has more to do with what resonated with them, what got awakened in them by our candidate. Okay, so it doesn't put somebody in a good or bad box. It puts them in a human box that got stirred up in a certain way, just like you get stirred up. All right, so those are some of the bigger pieces of why Trump won. And again, it doesn't make his supporters dumb. It doesn't make his supporters weak. It just means that they were not sure what they should be doing and how they should be doing it. And he spoke to, this is how I can do that for you. This is how I can help you. Let me take that load and help you with that so you don't have to carry it again. That's all he did. And he spoke to the kid. He didn't speak to the mind. Now, the times he did speak to the mind, what did we see? Well, we saw a lot of, Pinocchios. And people were like, well, how would you vote for somebody who tells stories all the time, who just outright lies all the time, who just whatevers all the time? That's what happens when you don't allow yourself to feel. Even if someone is not being honest and you know that, you forgive them for it, because they get me at a gut level. If you ever want to connect with somebody and really make sure that they know that you understand them, that you feel them, connect with the gut. Connect and talk to that little boy, that little girl who no one listened to when they were 5, that no one listened to when they were 13, that people dismissed when they were 16. Talk to that person. Because what will happen is they will presume that you can learn the mental stuff. That's what happens. So when you start to really think about what just happened last night, what just happened? What happened was what happens all the time with great leaders. They spoke to the little girl. They spoke to the little boy. Because no one ever listens to kids. When I was growing up, it was kids should be seen and not heard. Well, now I'm an adult and I'm still not seen and heard. Well, now you are. That's why people who are charismatic win. That's why they win. It's not on substance. If you understand how I feel, I presume you will learn the substance. That's how it works. This is why we tell people you have to take responsibility for your life. It doesn't mean you're being irresponsible, but it means evolving and continuing to grow in your world. Taking responsibility means I know what I feel, I understand what I feel, and I own what I feel at a gut level so I can't be manipulated in my emotion. There's a saying, never make a decision when you're angry and never make a promise when you're happy. Whenever you talk and commit to something out of an emotion, most often you live to regret it. And that could have been with Hillary or with Trump. That could have been with any politician. This is why when politicians speak to us at an emotional level, it resonates. It resonates because we feel moved. Just think about the language that we use. I feel understood, right? I feel in my heart understood. Remember, the mind can't feel. I feel understood. It's not I understand that I feel. No, I feel understood. And when you can anchor it in someone's emotional body, you have access to their mind. This is why at the end of the day, you are the one that can decide whether or not someone can control you. Oftentimes when people come in and say they want to do Yandi, okay, everybody can do Yandi. Not everybody can do Rohan, but everybody can do Yandi. And that's when you identify the 3 rooms of hell that your kid created because it was punished and it's hurting and it's trying to keep itself safe. We all do it. We all have them. And the adult creates 3 rooms of hell that keeps itself safe so it can have control over this rambunctious kid who's, hell-bent on creating all kind of chaos. When they come in and they get on the table and they look at that little girl, that little boy in them, they are either overwhelmed with emotion of remorse or they're devastated. They're not devastated or remorseful about what they've done to other people. They're devastated and remorseful about what they've done to themselves, how they've ignored themselves, how they've given away themselves because they've been taught not to trust themselves. Because see, if we trusted ourselves in this election, I'm just going to talk about this one because it applies for every election. But if we trusted ourselves in this election, believe me, I couldn't help myself, but believe me, that media would have pushed those people, would have pushed those candidates to answer questions that were tough. And if they couldn't, we would have. We created Trump. We created Clinton. We created a democratic process that didn't work for us because we didn't trust ourselves to know what we already knew. We were afraid to take responsibility for our successes and our failures. So we hand it over to somebody else so we can blame them. It's your fault. No, it's your fault. It's your fault. You did this and you did that. Well, guess what happens when we do that? It puts us in our victim energy. You did this to me. And that's the child. You did this to me. And you are so much stronger than that. You are not a victim. You have survived 100% of the things that was supposed to destroy you. You are not a victim. That, in and of itself, is a complete illusion, a complete and total lie. Come on. You are strong and you are clever. There's nothing to be afraid of. Not with Clinton, not with Trump, not with the Congress, not with the Senate, nothing. Which leads me to the next piece I want to talk about, because most of the country went red. And people were talking. I was up until, oh, there we go. Sorry. My kid texted me from school. But I was up until about 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, actually a little after 3, because I watched a speech. And then I went to the television studio to talk about what happened. And one of the things that people were just in disbelief about was how red the country was, how women voted for Trump, how 29% of Latinos, the people he called rapists and murderers and drug dealers and not the best that Mexico sent, voted for Trump. African Americans voted for Trump. And people were just like, I'm in disbelief. Women, how can you vote for this man? He's, got all kind of stuff going on. He said all these things and we know all of what he said. Same thing for Clinton. Women are like, how can you vote for her? She's this and she's that. And, and she does these horrible things and, Well, when you feel disconnected and someone touches your heart just a little bit, that's who you go with. Think about it in your life. Seriously, think about it in your life. How many times did you ignore logic because you loved somebody? How many times did you not use your, as we used to say growing up in my family, your good sense? Because you were in love, or because they don't get it and this person gets you. We've all done it. That's how this works. Everything that we see in the world is a reflection of us, both good and bad. A reflection of us. We can't pick and choose what we want to see. We see all of it. Now, what we do with it when we see it, completely up to us. But everything that you dislike in Trump, you do it. And you might not like me saying it, but it's true. It don't make it less true because you don't like it. And I still love you. How many times have you been a hypocrite? How many times have you complained about those illegals? That leads to the other piece, which is fear and shame. How many times have you judged a Muslim person? Probably more than you think. Those Facebook posts with the person dressing up as a Muslim with the bag, tossing it and running away and people running, and it's only funny because it was a prank. Yeah, not so much. How many times have you said that somebody who shouldn't be here took your job? Or you judged someone who is receiving maybe Medicaid? How many times have you complained about crime and wished that it would just go away and just lock everybody up? And if we just did that, then people would take us seriously because we're too soft on X, Y, or Z. And then how many times have we lied and said, it's okay though, that one doesn't count. Now, I'm not saying that the things that Trump and Clinton have done that we dislike, we do the exact same thing the exact same way. But we do it in our own way. And we justify it. And we make excuses for it. But then when someone else does it, we go up in arms and we are just over the moon. And we are fit to be tied. Which leads me to talk a little bit more about fear. When we talk about the kid is really motivated. If you have children, or remember when you were a kid, you were motivated to do your homework if you were afraid of what was going to happen if you didn't. Fear is a very powerful fuel. So is anger. And the reason why we were surprised that most of the country went red is because there was a lot of shame in how we felt. There was a lot of anger and resentment that I couldn't say what I wanted to say about how I felt, and that I couldn't agree with what he said because you guys would judge me, or people would judge me, and they wouldn't talk to me, or they would block me, or they would whatever. I might be mad at you. I might not be mad at you. But the fact that somebody can't say those things and can't have those feelings, we're no different than the thing that we're condemning. How can you condemn the thing that you do? Again, the world is a mirror of us, both good and bad. And that leads me to another thing. The ounce of truth. Now, the ounce of truth is really cool because it just takes a grain of something that is accurate, surrounded by all kind of fantasies and misdirection and, slick tongue for it to stick. You just need a little bit of truth. So is there fear? Absolutely. You can find it everywhere. This is what we call a good lie. Lie to me, baby. We want to be lied to sometimes because it makes us feel better about the thing that we do that we can't admit that we do. Now, this doesn't, again, make anybody a good or a bad person. It makes you human, and that's okay. This is how we learn, and this is how we grow, so we can make some different decisions, and we can take our lives back and actually have more control over who we are and what we do. Now, the next thing that I want to touch on is the hate. Now, some people are probably going to inbox me and say all kind of horrible things on this video, but whatever, As much as we hate somebody, we love them the same, with the same intensity. I can only hate you as much as I can love you. That's how it works. I can only go as low as I can go high. So if you think I'm the N word and the B word and you can't stand me, ooh, that means you love me so much, but you just don't know it. I'm not saying go out and marry somebody like that, but that's what that means for that individual. That hate is also self-hate. That is that part of us that hates being weak and losing and feeling helpless and feeling like victims and feeling like we're being ridiculed and teased. That's speaking to that inner child. We hate those things about ourselves, not realizing those are healthy things. Being weak reminds you of how strong you are. Being helpless reminds you that you're not alone and that you can reach out because you don't have to do this by yourself. But we have lost the gold in the struggle. We forgot that at the end of the journey is a pot of gold, but that there are gold crumbs along the way that take us to that pot of gold. We don't just stumble on it. We have to work for it, and we look and we find it. One of the last things, there's another thing after this that I want to speak to. I'm going to turn my heater. It's really hot in my office. But one of the last things I want to speak to is that any politician that promises you the world, anybody who promises you the world, can't give it to you because it doesn't belong to them. Anybody who promises to save you, it's an illusion. No one can save you but yourself. No one's coming. All they can do is create opportunities for you to learn how to do some things differently, because maybe the way of life that you were used to living before is gone. Some changes are going to have to be made then, by you, not by them, by you. And if you don't want to change, it's going to be tough, no matter who's the president. The other thing is that every president that we've had, every last one of them, and I'm not a president historical type of person, but I know enough to know that change is progressive and it happens slowly. And there's a reason for that. It's the same reason that we use in business. If you have a business and you grow too fast or you change too quickly, your business will collapse. You can't keep up with the change. It's too fast. It's like eating an ice cream cone really, really quickly, and you get a brain freeze, and then you can't even eat it, and you don't even want it because it's too much goodness. It's too much ice cream goodness. That's what that's like. So even if Hillary or Trump promises you all of this, know that it's going to come in very small pieces. So don't expect too much to happen too quickly. And that's not to excuse it. It's just to help you manage expectations. I know it's not exciting, but it's reality. One of the things that I really get discouraged with our country, and I love America, but I get really discouraged, is we've not been taught delayed gratification. We've not been taught compassion and empathy for ourselves. We don't know how to wait. We don't know how to work hard. We've forgotten those things. It used to be part of who we are, but at some point it was replaced with, I deserve. Not really. Nobody deserves anything. The world owes you nothing. Zero. Zilch. We all have to help each other. But we cannot do it for you. Nobody can. And if you don't figure that out quick, oh my gosh, are you going to really be upset with President-elect Trump? Because he can't do it for you either. And that's okay, because you can do it for yourself. Look, I'm not a doom and gloom kind of person. But I do believe that we need this. We needed Trump and Clinton to bring up our shadow, because at this point in our life as Americans, whether you were born in this country or not, but at this point in our life as Americans, we can no longer say there is no racism. We can no longer say there is no sexism. We can no longer say that's all in your head. Now we're going to have to deal with it. But here's the kicker. Here's the irony. We could have dealt with this 8 years ago, 12 years ago, 16 years ago, but we didn't, because we didn't want to see it. Well, until we acknowledge what we see, we continue to have it happen. Life continues to give you the same lesson until you pass. That's the universal law. That's how this works. So either we learn how to get along on this planet, or we all go down. Hell, how you like that one? We either figure it all out together, or we all lose it all. There are no winners and losers at this point. We either learn how to get along, or we all destroy each other. You remember maybe growing up, if you had a sibling and your mother just got so tired of you two fighting, She put you in a big shirt and it was called the get along shirt, or she made you sit down with each other and just look at each other until you could find something in the other person that you love or that you even like or respect. That's where we are. And that's pretty sad. Because we want to be adults, but we act like kids because our kids haven't been healed and they're running amok right now. So we don't have to agree with each other. But at the very least, be civil. Be compassionate. Be respectful to yourself. Because you can only treat me the way you treat yourself. If you call me the N word or the B word, or you say hang that blah blah blah, or do this to that blah blah blah, that's kind of your death wish. That's how that worked. Freud was onto something, and then there's a couple of cohesion pieces in there, but definitely Jung, collective unconscious. Yeah, let's tie into that one for a minute. So the next time you see a little black boy, little brown girl, little Muslim person, or an adult who looks different than you, and you say, ha ha ha, we're sending you back. I wouldn't do that if I were you. Wouldn't do that if I were you. I would work really, really hard to look inside and see how you do that to yourself. Education and mental health are going to be huge the next 4 years. Huge. Huge. I can't even help myself right now. Because if we don't learn how to think, and so let me explain what I mean by education and mental health. I don't mean traditional education where I have to parrot back to you this garbage that you just had me memorize. That's not education. When I grew up, I was very, very fortunate to have teachers who challenged me to think. What do you think will happen if you do this? That's gone from the schools now. Now it's about, can you pass this test? Can you do this? Can you do that? Okay. Well, you've just limited how that child, how that individual will be able to think as an adult. So education, teaching critical thinking skills, teaching analytical skills, teaching self-awareness. That's going to be the next 4 years. And if the schools don't do it, parents, you are obligated to find out how to help your child learn that. Which means don't be putting your bag of crap on your kid. Which means just because I don't like somebody, you don't like that person. You don't know. Maybe they don't like that person for their own reasons. Maybe they do. And it might be enough to change your mind or get you to stop and pause and think. Kids are not your mini-yous. Just not. And last but not least, I do want to say mental health isn't for crazy people. Now, I worked on psych units, and I have my private practice for the last 25 years. Wow. That's a long time. But I was born a prodigy, so I'm only 30. But I haven't met a crazy person yet. I haven't met one crazy person. I've met people who've had chemical imbalances. And I've met people who have been misunderstood. And I've met people who have lived through devastating things and have survived and have created ways in their minds, very creative ways, to be here. I haven't met a crazy person yet. Education and mental health. Make that your priority the next 4 years. So the next time you have a choice, you can feel like, yeah, I created a better choice for myself this time. Because what we were given this year, we created that too. So if you want a better choice the next election, create it. Look at yourself. Heal that part of you. Remove that judgment. Learn how to love and be compassionate with yourself. And whatever you do, Ask yourself the $10 million question. How do I do that? Whenever we dislike something, we do that. We just don't know how we do it. When we love something, we do that too. We just don't know how we do it. Learning how to ask yourself, how do I do that, will allow you to create a life very, very different from the one you have now. It will allow you to actually be happy. It will allow you to be free. Because when we're in that judge, when we're judging people, we're not free. We're a prisoner. So if you're looking to deal with that stuff and take responsibility, do heart-centered hypnotherapy. Heck, if you can do it, do frickin' Yandi. Yandi's inner light is great. It's 2.5 days you go into your subconscious and look at your crap. Nobody else is around. It's just you and your therapist. And if you really want to go deep and get rid of that stuff, do Rohan. I've done every process that I do with my clients at least once. Some of them twice. Very, very painful. Ouch. So I wouldn't have anybody do anything that I haven't done myself. But how did Trump win? There's your answer. So what are some of the things you can do? Look at how you do those things that bother you. If it bothers you, you do it. Now you got to be willing and set your intention to see how you do that. And if somebody says, you know what, you just did blah, 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 don't say, no, I didn't. You probably did. Just like if someone says, oh my God, you're beautiful. You probably are. It works both ways. We can't pick and choose. Everything is about how we learn and how we grow. And I want all of us to grow together because I love all of you. And I know that if we didn't like this election and the choices that we had, we can create better choices next time. So with that said, I send you all love and light. The sky hasn't fallen, and it won't. Mwah. If you're interested in learning more about Yandi or Rohan or hypnotherapy, you can go to my website at highachiever.net, www.highachiever.net. Learn more about it. Google it. I don't care. If you don't see me, see somebody. I love you guys.